The music pulsed like a heartbeat, shaking the walls of the sprawling suburban house. Laughter and shouts spilled from the backyard, where fairy lights twinkled and a bonfire roared, casting flickering shadows on the faces of Lakewood High's senior class. I stood at the edge of it all, gripping a red plastic cup, my heart hammering as I watched Elliot Harper shrink into himself across the lawn. They were at it again. The usual crowd. Jake Reynolds and his pack of lacrosse jocks circled Elliot like vultures, their laughter sharp and cruel. "Yo, Harper, did you borrow that sweater from your grandma?" Jake's voice cut through the noise, and the group erupted, their mockery a blade slicing into Elliot's quiet dignity. He adjusted his glasses, his shoulders hunching, and I felt a spark of rage ignite in my chest. Elliot wasn't like them. He was the kid who aced every math test, who carried a worn copy of Dune in his backpack, who blushed when anyone spoke to him. But to me, Theo Martinez, he was something else entirely, a puzzle I couldn't stop trying to solve. I'd spent months stealing glances at him in AP Calculus, memorizing the way his brow furrowed when he solved a problem, the way his shy smile lit up when he thought no one was watching. Tonight, though, that smile was gone, buried under Jake's taunts. I pushed through the crowd, my sneakers sinking into the damp grass. The air smelled of smoke and cheap beer, and the music thumped louder as I neared the bonfire. Elliot's eyes flicked up, meeting mine for a split second, and I saw it: fear. Yes, but also a flicker of something defiant, something that said he wasn't as fragile as they thought. My pulse raced. I didn't plan it. I didn't think. I just acted. "Leave him alone, Jake," I said, my voice louder than I expected, cutting through the jeers. Every head turned. Jake's smirk faltered, but he recovered, stepping closer with that cocky swagger. "What's it to you, Martinez? You his bodyguard now." His buddies snickered, but I didn't look at them. I looked at Elliot, his hazel eyes wide behind his glasses, his lips parted in surprise. "Maybe I am," I shot back, and before I could second-guess myself, I closed the distance between me and Elliot. My hand found his, warm and trembling, and I pulled him toward me. The crowd gasped as I leaned in and kissed him right there, in front of everyone. Time froze. His lips were soft, hesitant, then suddenly sure, kissing me back with a fierceness that stole my breath. The world exploded into whispers and shouts, but I didn't care. For that moment, it was just us two boys caught in a firestorm of courage and something unspoken that had been building for months. When we pulled apart, Elliot's cheeks were flushed, his eyes blazing with a mix of shock and wonder. Jake stood speechless, his mouth hanging open, and for once, the king of Lakewood High had nothing to say. The party didn't stop, but it shifted. The music still blared, the bonfire still crackled, but the energy had changed. People stared, some with curiosity, others with judgment, and a few with quiet admiration. I could feel their eyes on us as I led Elliot away from the crowd, his hand still in mine, toward the quieter edge of the backyard where the fairy lights didn't reach. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly, his voice barely audible over the distant bass. He pushed his glasses up, a nervous habit I'd noticed 100 times in class. "Yeah, I did," I replied, leaning against a tree, my heart still pounding. "They don't get to treat you like that. Not anymore." Elliot looked down, kicking at the grass. "You don't even know me, Theo." "Not really." That stung, because he wasn't wrong. We'd barely spoken outside of class, our interactions limited to borrowed pencils and shy smiles. But I felt like I knew him. I knew the way he hummed under his breath when he worked, the way he always helped anyone who asked, even when they didn't deserve it. I knew the way my chest tightened every time he was near. "I want to," I said, My voice low. Honest. If you'll let me. He looked up, and for the first time that night, he smiled a small, real smile that made my stomach flip. You're kind of insane. You know that. I laughed, rubbing the back of my neck. Yeah. Well, you kissed me back. So what does that make you? His blush deepened, and he looked away, but the smile didn't fade. For a moment, we just stood there, the party a distant hum, the night wrapping around us like a secret. I wanted to say more, to ask him everything, why he always seemed so guarded, what he dreamed about, what made him tick. But before I could, a voice broke through. Theo. Harper. You guys okay? It was Mia Chun, my best friend since middle school, weaving through the crowd with a worried look. She'd always had my back, no matter what, and I could tell she'd seen the whole thing. We're good, I said, glancing at Elliot, who nodded. Mia's eyes flicked between us, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. Okay, but you know Jake's pissed, right? He's telling everyone you ruined his party. Let him, I said, shrugging. He's not worth it. Elliot's gaze softened, and he murmured, Thanks, Theo. Mia raised an eyebrow, clearly dying to ask more, but she just said, All right, I'll keep the vultures at bay. You two, talk or whatever. She winked and disappeared back into the crowd. We didn't talk much after that. Not really. We sat on the grass, shoulders brushing, watching the stars peek through the clouds. It wasn't perfect, but it was something real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But the night wasn't over. Not even close. The next morning, Lakewood High buzzed with whispers. The kiss had spread like wildfire, fueled by social media and gossip. My phone lit up with notifications, some supportive, some cruel, most just curious. I didn't read them. I didn't need to. The only thing that mattered was finding Elliot before first period. I spotted him by his locker, head down, scribbling in a notebook. He looked up as I approached, his expression unreadable. Hey, I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. Hey, he echoed, closing his notebook. So, last night happened. Yeah. I shoved my hands in my pockets, suddenly unsure. You okay with it? He hesitated, then nodded. I think so. It's just a lot. I got it. Lakewood wasn't exactly a haven of open minds. Sure, we had a pride club and a few out kids. But small-town Ohio wasn't San Francisco. People talked, and not always kindly. I'd grown up here, used to the stares and whispers about my Mexican heritage, my dad's food truck, my everything. But this was new for both of us. Want to get out of here? I asked, glancing at the crowded hallway. Just for a bit. Elliot's eyes widened. Skip class. You. I grinned. I'm full of surprises. 10 minutes later, we were in my beat-up Honda, driving toward the lake that gave the town its name. The water sparkled under the September sun, and we parked near a quiet stretch of shore, far from the tourist traps. Elliot relaxed a little, his shoulders loosening as he leaned against the car, staring at the ripples. Why'd you do it? He asked suddenly. The kiss. Why me? I sat on the hood, the metal warm under my jeans. Because I wanted to. Because I've been wanting to for a while. And because Jake's an asshole who needed to be shut up. Elliot laughed. A real laugh. And it was like music. You're not wrong about Jake. He paused, then added, I didn't think you'd even noticed me before. Are you kidding? I turned to face him. Elliot, you're impossible not to notice. You're smart and kind, and I stopped. feeling my face heat up. I just didn't know how to say it before. He looked at me, his gaze steady, searching. You're not what I expected. Theo. Good or bad? Good, he said softly, and my heart did a stupid flip. We spent the rest of the morning there, talking about everything and nothing, his love for sci-fi, my obsession with soccer, the way his mom used to sing him to sleep before she passed, the way my dad taught me to make tamales. It was easy, like we'd been doing it forever. But the real world wasn't far away. And by lunch, my phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Jake's planning something. Be careful. Back at school, the air felt heavier. Jake and his crew were nowhere to be seen, which was worse than seeing them. It meant they were plotting. Elliot noticed it too, his quiet confidence from the lake fading as we walked to class. They're not worth it, I told him, echoing my words from the party. But he just shook his head. You don't get it, Theo. They don't stop. They never stop. His voice was raw, and I realized I didn't know half of what he'd been through. The taunts, the pranks, the years of being the nerd everyone picked on. I wanted to fix it, to protect him, but I didn't know how. After school, I convinced him to come to my dad's food truck, parked near the town square. The smell of grilled carne asada filled the air, and my dad, all smiles and flour-dusted apron, handed us tacos without asking questions. Elliot seemed to relax again, his guard dropping as he bit into the food. Your dad's cool, he said between bites. Yeah, he's the best. I hesitated, then added, he'd like you. You know, if you ever want to come over. Elliot's smile was shy, but it was there. Maybe I will. For a moment, it felt like we could outrun the world, Jake. The gossip, the judgment. But then I saw them, Jake and his buddies, sauntering across the square, their eyes locked on us. My stomach dropped. Martinez, Jake called, his voice dripping with fake friendliness. Didn't know you were into charity cases. Elliot tensed, his taco forgotten. I stood, stepping in front of him. Walk away, Jake. But Jake didn't walk away. He stepped closer, his smirk sharp as a knife. You think one kiss makes you a hero? You're nothing. Martinez. And Harper. He's less than that. Before I could respond, Elliot was on his feet, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. You don't know anything about us, Jake. You never will. The square went quiet, the handful of onlookers watching. Jake's face twisted, and for a second, I thought he'd swing. But then my dad appeared, wiping his hands on his apron, his presence calm but unyielding. Everything okay here? Mijo? He asked, his eyes on Jake. Jake backed off, muttering something under his breath, and his crew followed. But as they left, I caught the look in Jake's eyes, pure venom. This wasn't over. That night, I couldn't sleep. The memory of Elliot's defiance in the square played on a loop in my head, mixed with the unease of Jake's parting glare. I texted Elliot, checking in, and his reply was short but warm. I'm okay. Thanks for today. I stared at the words, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. The next day at school, things escalated. Someone had spray-painted "freak" on Elliot's locker, the red paint dripping like blood. He stared at it, his face pale, and I felt my fists clench. Who did this? I demanded, loud enough for the hallway to go silent. No one answered, but the snickers from Jake's corner told me everything. It's fine, Elliot said, his voice flat. I'll clean it up. No, it's not fine. I grabbed his arm, gently but firmly. You don't deserve this. He pulled away, his eyes guarded. I'm used to it. Theo. You can't fight every battle for me. His words hit hard, but I didn't back down. Maybe not, but I can fight with you. He looked at me, something softening in his expression, and nodded. We cleaned the locker together, scrubbing until our hands were raw, ignoring the stares. Mia joined us, her usual chatter replaced by quiet determination. By the time we finished, the paint was gone, but the weight of it lingered. That afternoon, Elliot invited me to his house, a small, tidy place on the edge of town. His dad was at work, and the quiet felt intimate, like stepping into his world. He showed me his room, walls lined with books and a telescope by the window. You really love the stars. Huh? I said, running my finger over a model of the solar system. They make sense, he said, sitting on his bed. Unlike people. I sat next to him, our knees brushing. Not all people. He smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. I've been the weird kid my whole life. Theo. Last night, that was the first time I felt like I could be more than that. You are more, I said, my voice fierce. You're incredible. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, and then he leaned in. This kiss was different, slower, softer, like a promise. My hands found his face, his glasses cool against my fingers. And for a moment, the world was just us. But the world never stays quiet for long. My phone buzzed. A message from Mia. Check X. Now. I opened the app, and my stomach sank. Someone had posted a video from the party kiss. Grainy but unmistakable, with comments piling up. Some were kind, but most were vicious. Tearing into Elliot. Me. Us. Who did this? Elliot whispered, his voice shaking as he looked over my shoulder. I didn't need to guess. I knew. We confronted Jake at the lacrosse field after practice. He was leaning against the bleachers, all smug confidence, like he'd been waiting for us. Nice video. Huh? He said, smirking. You two are famous now. Take it down, I said, my voice low. Dangerous. Or what? Jake stepped closer, his teammates flanking him. You gonna kiss me too? Martinez. Elliot grabbed my arm before I could move. He's not worth it, he said, echoing my words from before. But his eyes were fire, and I could see he was done hiding. You're pathetic, Jake, Elliot said, his voice steady. You think this hurts us? It just shows who you really are. Jake's smirk faltered, but he recovered fast. Keep talking, nerd. You'll regret it. As we walked away, I felt a mix of pride and dread. Elliot was stronger than anyone gave him credit for. But Jake wasn't done. Not by a long shot. That night, Elliot and I sat by the lake again, the water reflecting the moon. I'm scared, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But I'm not sorry. Me neither, I said, taking his hand. Whatever happens, we face it together. He squeezed my hand, and for the first time, I saw hope in his eyes. But deep down, I knew Jake's next move would be worse. And I was right. The next week was a blur of tension. The video stayed up, racking up views and comments, each one a dagger. School became a battlefield, whispers in the halls, stares in the cafeteria, teachers pretending not to notice. But Elliot and I were a unit now, walking side by side, our shoulders brushing like armor. Mia rallied the Pride Club, and a few others joined us kids who'd been on the fringes, tired of hiding. We ate lunch together, a small rebellion against the hate. Elliot started smiling more, his wit sharper, his guard lower. I fell harder for him every day, caught up in the way he saw the world, the way he made me want to be better. But Jake wasn't done. On Friday, Posters appeared around school, photocopied stills from the video, with slurs scrawled across them. My blood boiled. But Elliot just stared, his face unreadable. "We need to end this," he said quietly. "Not for them. For us." He had a plan. It was risky, but I trusted him. That night, at the homecoming game, the whole school would be there. If we were going to take a stand, it had to be big. The stadium was packed, the air electric with cheers and the smell of popcorn. Elliot and I stood in the shadows of the bleachers, his hand in mine, both of us nervous but ready. Mia had pulled strings with the AV club, and as the halftime whistle blew, the Jumbotron flickered. The video played not Jake's, but ours. A montage Elliot had made, pieced together from moments we'd shared, us laughing by the lake, cleaning his locker, holding hands in my dad's food truck. Over it, Elliot's voice, calm and clear. "We're not your punchline. We're not your shame. We're just us. And we're enough." The crowd went silent, then erupted some in boos, but more in cheers. I looked at Elliot, his eyes shining with tears and pride, and I kissed him again, right there under the stadium lights. This time, it wasn't defiance. It was love, pure and simple. Jake was in the crowd, his face pale, his power crumbling. The next day, the posters were gone, and the video was taken down. Not because Jake had a change of heart, but because the school couldn't ignore us anymore. The principal called a meeting, promising to address the harassment. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Months later, Elliot and I sat on his roof, staring at the stars through his telescope. He pointed out constellations, his voice soft and sure, and I listened, my heart full. We weren't just the school nerd and the guy who kissed him anymore. We were Theo and Elliot, two kids figuring it out, together. "I used to think I didn't belong anywhere," he said, his head resting on my shoulder. "But I belong with you." I kissed his forehead, the night wrapping around us. Always. The world wasn't fixed. There'd be more fights, more hate, but we'd face it, hand in hand, because our love was worth it. And that was enough.